In Sacred Heart, Minnesota, we Lutherans barely knew the Catholic kids. Their mothers smoked Camels, played bridge in the afternoons instead of Ladies' Aid. Their fathers, lying under their Chevys, said, "God damn," cursing the motors to life. But we built bird baths of cement, pressed splinters of broken bottles into their wet breasts. Hosiery salesmen driving through to the cities marveled. We gave hobos who asked at our back doors for food glasses of buttermilk because it was good for them. When I was 8, a big Catholic kid asked me up to his garage loft to see his crucifix. Even then, I knew that Lutherans are justified by faith alone and kept my legs crossed.
Phoebe is a poet of history as well as a poet of inner psychology. This hugely expansive consciousness, this ebullient spirit. I mean, what to do with that history, with that background? And of course, what she's done is mine it and mine it and mine it.
And it's funny when you come back to a house that you lived in as a child, how the memories come flooding back. My dad built this house. My mother died in this house, and her casket was right over in there in that window, because they didn't have a funeral home here, and so the furniture dealer prepared the body. He was the undertaker. So it's quite a memory trip to come back here. I've never really asked to go in and see it before, and that was such a good experience. I'll never forget it.
She remembers everything. She's a great raconteur. She tells wonderful stories. She's a wonderful, wonderful friend.
There's still a lot of old people who've lived here forever, right?
Well, you probably remember this place, because this place was built in, what, 25?
Yeah, because it was a gas station though, wasn't it?
Gas station.
Right. I do remember this place. When we were sitting at the cafe, Kathy's Cafe, which used to be an old, wonderful old gas station when I was a child, a woman walked in. We hadn't planned on this. She just walked in, and she recognized me and came over to me. I remembered her name, Rosemary Stenborg, and she was kind of one of those girls that I kind of looked up to, because she always had beautiful, her father owned the grocery store in town, and she had beautiful clothes, and she lived in this beautiful Spanish style house with a sunken living room, and I just thought she was wonderful. I can't explain it, but there's something that happens as you get older. It does seem to happen that you are, more than ever, you want to be in touch with your childhood friends.
She has a great deal of early death in her life.
I was 8, she was 31. She got very sick after the birth of her youngest child, and she never really got out of bed after that. There was no penicillin. She just got sicker and sicker, and her heart was eventually so damaged that's what caused her death. And I remember standing on the cemetery the day of the funeral, standing with the family and the people in the congregation, and seeing that mounded over, newly dug grave after they put her casket into the ground. The odd thing I remember feeling is, I am so old. I'm 8 years old, but I felt like an old woman. And this is the sad thing, that my father, because he was so religious, encouraged us not to grieve, because she'd gone to heaven, to a better place. Why would we want her back? Why would we grieve for the loss of someone who'd gone off to a better place? That was the sad part of the death, the big part. And the truth is that I've been grieving ever since. My friends once described it as a Dickensian childhood, I think because of all the deaths. But that was true of so many people in the 1930s. Partly it's because I'm a woman, I feel it doesn't apply to me. I think of the Great Generation as applying to the men who served in World War II. They're just a few years older than I, but I feel quite removed from them because they served in the war, and that changed them forever.
Phoebe isn't looking for a self, the way so many people are. She's got one and she's using it.
I've never quite understood what that term coming of age meant. It could mean a lot of different things. I suppose it means once you become a real human being or a real mature person, it could mean almost anything. But I consider my entire life a coming of age from 0 to 78.
She talked about the fact that she was writing and that she did all these journals. And I'd already started writing poetry, and I just knew she'd be good. I just knew it. And I was right.
So I got in on something that was kind of a natural phenomenon. It had to do with the women's movement. It had to do with this Women's Poets of the Twin Cities organization. And then I got involved in the public schools, poets in the schools, and little by little, my name became known. A couple of years ago, when our governor vetoed the idea of a state poet laureate, and several people in the newspaper article mentioned my name as a possibility, I was stunned.
And the other thing I like about her poems is how she takes them from her journals, and that she can go to a day in 1945 or 1948. She can pick out a particular day, and she can read what she's thinking on that day.
My first journal entry was written on January 1st, 1939. My friend Janice Lindbergh, I like to remember her name because she started me on an incredible career of keeping journals. I was 10 years old, and I had a little 5-year diary. I wrote enough so that when I look back at it now, I am reminded of things. And I've used that diary again and again for inspiration for writing my poems.
What Phoebe does with words could make me weep with joy.
In the cottonwood grove behind Doll's farm, the eyes of rusting cars stare at me before I crawl into them, pretend I am driving. Power flows from the wheels. I believe I am in control. Forget my mother's heart lies fading in a little bedroom beyond the rows of corn. They have sent me away from her dying to play in the grove, to whisper into the ears of corn, towering above me as I sit between the rows reading her letters, which say she misses me, even though it is quieter without me and my brother fighting. He has brought her a goldfish from the little pond beside the pergola house and laid it on her stomach. Years later, I return to the grove, where the cottonwood trees have grown scrawny, but the old cars are still there. Their eyes stare at me, unseeing and dead. I remember that play by Thornton Wilder, Our Town, where he has a scene on the cemetery, and they talk about how people won't ever die if you keep talking about them and remembering them. And so that's how I try to keep my mother alive, and my father alive, and my sister and brother alive, and how I hope I'll be kept alive because of the things I leave behind, the memories and the journals, all the written stuff and the poems. So, yes, that's my immortality for sure.